Welcome to Mild History, a place where the past drifts in like evening mist, and we walk through it slowly without hurry. Tonight's story is The Forgotten Quarter and the Well That Remembers. Before we begin, I'd love to know, where in the world are you listening from tonight? And what you're doing as you listen. Perhaps you're curled up in a blanket with a warm drink. Maybe you're lying in bed with the lights low, or letting the quiet settle in around you while you work on something gentle. However you're here, you're welcome, and I'm glad you found your way to this little corner of the past. We'll take our time tonight. There is no rush. The story will unfold at its own pace, like the slow turn of evening shadows. Tonight, we step quietly behind the timber walls of a medieval brothel. Not to judge, not to sensationalize, just to follow one day in the life of a woman whose story rarely makes it into the history books. She isn't a queen or a noblewoman. She isn't even a nun writing apocalyptic poetry in some lonely tower. No, she is a prostitute, living in the belly of the city, where the alleyways smell faintly of old wine and worse secrets. And the truth is, in her world, you might not survive the week. Disease lingers here always. Violence waits around the corner. Stigma clings like smoke to every breath you take. And the economics of medieval sex work are thrillingly unstable. A tightrope walk over filth and fire. Before we begin, take a deep breath. Settle somewhere warm. Dim the lights. Maybe put on the soft hum of a fan in the background. And let's walk slowly together into the day. Your morning begins well before the bells of Mass toll across the city. The sun hasn't risen. The air is still blue with night, cold and quiet. A thin breath of dawn slides through the warped shutters and touches the wall near your bed. The straw mattress beneath you crackles when you shift. You feel the usual ache in your hips and thighs. You slept crooked again. Someone was shouting in the street past midnight. And a cat, determined, angry, clawed at your window an hour after that. It's always something. You reach beneath the mattress and pull out a small pouch, your little hoard. 3 silver pennies, 5 copper ones, and a polished ring that might be glass or might be nothing. Not bad considering how drunk your last client was. You tuck the pouch back into its hiding place. You don't trust the lock on your trunk. And you certainly don't trust anyone else in this building. Not even the girls you drink with most nights. The room smells of perfume turned sour, mixed with last night's firewood smoke. Your shift sticks to your skin, still damp in patches. You swing your legs over the edge of the bed and notice the bruises. One on your thigh, another under your rib. You don't remember getting either. You've learned not to ask questions about bruises anymore. If you asked every time, you'd never stop asking. Barefoot, you push open the door and creep down the hallway. The floorboards groan beneath you. Behind the other doors you hear snores, a muffled laugh, and yes, someone already working. Poor creature. Downstairs the air is thicker. There's always the faint scent of ale soaked into the wood. Somewhere a pipe is smoking. A client waits, early, silent, and sets a small pouch of coins on the table. No haggling, no words. You count the coins. Generous. You nod and begin to undress. He never speaks. Not a word. That isn't uncommon, but it's never comfortable. As you work, your mind drifts to breakfast. Perhaps pottage with a few pieces of carrot, and if you're lucky, a little warm bread. When he's gone, you wash quickly. Not thorough, just enough. And for a moment, you lie back on the bed, letting your eyes close. Just for a moment. Outside, the city is waking. A bell rings somewhere far away. Footsteps on the street below. A cry from a stallholder, setting up for the day. You pull your shift tighter and step out into the chill, heading for a crust of bread. A preacher shouts on the corner, his voice sharp and certain, about sin and plague, and God's wrath. The usual. He waves a parchment and a little bell. The end comes, he cries, for those who tempt the flesh. A few people glance at you. Most are too busy with their bread and their business to care. You've heard worse. Sometimes from men who paid extra. You toss the last of your crust to a rat darting behind a barrel, and turn back toward the brothel. You'll need to be there before the madam finds a reason to mark your name down. Inside, there's a hum of voices. It's inspection day. A municipal health officer stands in the middle of the room, back straight, eyes scanning each girl in turn. The madam is whispering into his ear, likely negotiating the week's bribes. Girls are being looked over. One is sent upstairs with a fever. Another is warned for wearing too much rouge. The room smells of sweat and smoke and nerves simmering just under the surface. You put on your best smile, even as your stomach turns. The inspection ends without much ceremony. The madam's smile is wider now, meaning the bribe has landed in the right hand. A few of the girls slip away upstairs, some for work, some to lie down until the queasiness passes. You linger near the door. You've learned to stay visible just enough to seem obedient, but not so close that you're chosen by the first impatient hand. A faint chill from the street brushes your ankles. You breathe it in. The air outside smells of bread, horses, and the faint, sour tang of the river. Later, you're back in your room. The coins from the morning lie in a neat little stack on the trunk. You count them again, a habit as much as a safeguard. Your thoughts wander to the other girls. Rianilda, sent to bed with a fever. Elise, whose laughter could fill a room, even when she wasn't feeling it. And Isabetta, her eyes always scanning the door, like she's waiting for someone who's late, or someone who should never come back at all. By late morning, the rooms begin to fill again. Merchants mostly, smelling of garlic and ambition. One wears a fur-lined cape and claims to have dined with the prince's cousin. Another boasts about buying a new horse and a mistress in the same week. All of them drink too much, and all of them look right through you, until they decide to want you. The conversations blur. A request here, a complaint there. You've heard them all before. One man in particular leaves behind something unusual. 6 silver coins and a heavy brass ring engraved with a seal. You stare at it after he leaves. It's too personal for a man like that to forget, which means it isn't a mistake. It's a message, and messages are rarely good news. The day presses on. You wash in the small basin by your bed, scrubbing harder than usual, as though you could scrape the unease from your skin. The afternoon is quieter. The air in the brothel thickens with the slow heat of bodies, and the faint smell of stewed cabbage drifting from the kitchen. You hear Elise laugh somewhere down the hall. A man's voice follows, low and syrupy. Then silence, the kind that makes you want to listen harder. By the time the sun tilts toward the rooftops, you find yourself sitting by the window with Isabetta. She offers you a piece of candied ginger. For the stomach, she says. You've been rubbing it all day. You hadn't noticed. But she's right. You take the ginger, its sweetness slow to bloom on your tongue. Ever think about leaving? She asks suddenly. The question hangs in the air between you. Every day, you say. Then after a pause, depends who asked me to go. She hums softly, neither agreeing nor disagreeing. Then she stands, smooths her skirt, and says only, don't wait too long. The city eats slow, girls. Evening settles in with the smell of roasting meat from the street vendors. The brothel lamps are lit, casting a golden glow on the walls, and deepening the shadows in the corners. And somewhere beyond those walls, the city begins to shift. The laughter turns sharper, the footsteps heavier, and the dangers of the night, both expected and uninvited, are on their way. The first of the evening's clients arrives before the lamps have fully warmed the room. He's young, younger than most, and wears his guilt like a too-tight cloak. His eyes keep sliding away from yours. He fiddles with his belt, as if unsure whether to tighten it or take it off. You know the kind, too careful in their steps, too deliberate in their silence. It's not shyness. It's the fear of being caught, or the fear of admitting they want to be here at all. With men like this, you spend more time comforting than teasing, more time trying to make them feel less like a criminal and more like a customer. When he leaves, he forgets nothing. Not a coin, not a word, just a soft, almost apologetic look. As he pulls the door closed behind him, you sit for a while afterward, hands in your lap, listening to the sounds downstairs. The brass ring from earlier sits on the trunk beside you. Its seal catches the lamplight, just enough to make it glint like an eye. You turn it over in your palm. It's heavier than it looks, the weight of something that carries a meaning. You don't yet understand. Isabetta passes your door, a jar of rosewater in one hand, a cloth packet in the other. She slips inside without knocking, opens the packet, candied ginger again. She offers a piece. You take it, rolling the sugar over your tongue, until it melts into a soft heat. She watches you for a moment. Her eyes sharpen. Keep your wits about you tonight, she says. You've been marked before. You raise a brow, but she only shrugs and leaves. Downstairs, the room is busier now. Merchants crowd the tables, their hands loose around mugs of ale. Their voices spill into the air, mixing with the low thrum of a lute in the corner. One boasts about his new horse and mistress, another about a feast with the prince's cousin. They speak as though the world bends easily for them, and perhaps it does. All the while, you feel the ring in your pocket, a quiet reminder that someone somewhere is thinking about you when they shouldn't be. Outside, the street noise thickens, a mix of laughter, shouts, and the occasional crack of wood on stone. The wind carries the scent of roasted meat and the faint bitterness of spilled beer. From the doorway, you watch the lamps flicker in the distance, their light trembling in the wind. Elise joins you. She holds out her cup. You hand her yours. She drains it without asking. "Rough one," she mutters. You glance at her. She exhales through her nose. "A noble," she says. "One with soft hands and a cruel mouth. Asked me to bark like a dog. Got angry when I didn't wag my tail." You can't help but snort. "Tell him it costs extra next time." She shakes her head. He didn't even tip. The moment hangs between you. Part shared annoyance, part something heavier neither of you says aloud. Back upstairs, the lamp throws shadows against the wall. The ring glints again on the trunk. Somewhere far below, laughter rises, and then breaks into shouting. The night is only just beginning. The shouting downstairs fades into a tense, wet silence. You can hear the sound of boots on stone, heavy, deliberate. They stop at the door. The madam's voice rises, her tone too light to be genuine. She's greeting someone important. It's the bailiff's nephew. You've seen him before. Hair oiled flat, coat lined with lamb's fleece, hands soft enough to have never seen rope or spade. But his eyes are always searching. Not for beauty, not for kindness, for leverage. He doesn't look at you when he enters. Instead, he scans the room, like he's reading a ledger of debts only he understands. A small pouch jingles at his belt. When he shifts his weight, you catch the faint smell of lavender. Not the bright, fresh kind, but the dry, dusty scent of an old sachet that's been in a drawer too long. He chooses the corner table, the one near the stairs, where he can watch the comings and goings. Isabetta's eyes flick to yours, a silent warning. You nod. On your way back upstairs, you pass Elise, who whispers without turning her head. He's been asking about a ring. Says it has a seal. Belongs to the city guild. Your pocket feels heavier. The brass band might as well be a stone. From the window above, you can see the narrow street outside. The lamps are lit now, their glow catching on the slick cobblestones. Down by the quarter gate, a street performer is singing. It's the same man who's there most nights, his voice soft and reedy, telling stories in rhyme for anyone who will stop. Tonight's song is different, slower, almost like a warning. Every few verses, you hear the clang of the watchman's bell in the distance, marking the patrol's slow progress through the city. You close the shutters halfway. The smell of roasting chestnuts from a vendor below drifts in before the latch clicks. Back in the room, you empty your small coin purse to count what you've earned. The last coin, a silver one from earlier in the day, has something folded tight around it, a slip of paper. The writing is cramped, as though the message was scratched in quickly. If you keep it, you keep their eyes on you. No name, no mark. You press it flat on the table. Your fingers linger on the paper, feeling the faint grain of the fibers. Downstairs, laughter swells again. The bailiff's nephew is still at his table, still watching the stairs. You slip the note into the hem of your skirt. Not hidden enough to be forgotten. Just enough to be ready. The ring, though, that stays where it is. For now. It begins with the scrape of a chair across the floorboards. Then a shout. Then another voice. Louder, deeper, carrying the kind of authority that comes from drink. Not rank. The rowdy hour has arrived. That middle slice of night. When the ale loosens tongues, and the air grows thick with the smell of sweat, spilt beer, and the faint sharpness of iron from the men's sword hilts. From the top of the stairs, you watch the room. Merchants, soldiers, and shipmen press in shoulder to shoulder. Some clap in rhythm with the lute player in the corner. Others argue over a dice game, slamming their palms down on the table hard enough to make the mugs jump. The bailiff's nephew doesn't move. He sits with the patience of someone who enjoys, letting the noise swell around him. You head down, weaving between bodies, your skirts brushing against boots and spurs. A soldier with flushed cheeks catches your wrist. You smile politely, but he's too far gone to notice the stiffness in your lips. It takes a word from Elise, sharp enough to cut through the din. Before he lets go, she doesn't stay to talk, just nods toward the nephew's table. He has a cup in front of him now. Not ale, not wine, something clear, with a single strip of lemon peel floating at the surface. You keep a careful hand, he says, his voice soft, as though you're the only one meant to hear. The weight in your pocket presses against your thigh. He leans back, studying you. The crowd noise swells behind you, but in the space between you and him, it feels almost quiet. I'm told, he says slowly, you've been given something that's not yours. You tilt your head. Men give me all sorts of things, you reply. Most of them I don't keep. The corner of his mouth twitches. Not quite a smile. You should return it before someone decides to come for it. He doesn't wait for an answer. Just lifts the cup, sips, and sets it down again. A crash breaks the moment. A table tipping, mugs rolling across the floor. The lute player stops mid-song. The nephew's eyes flick toward the commotion, then back to you. Think about it, he says. Then he's on his feet, slipping into the crowd without a backward glance. From the doorway, you catch the faintest note of the street performer's song, threading through the noise. The same slow, warning tune as before. You can't help but wonder if it's meant for you. The stairs creak under your step, their edges worn smooth from years of feet. Heavy, light, hurried, reluctant. The sound of the room below fades with each turn of the stairwell. By the time you reach the landing, only the muffled hum of voices remains. Your room is warm. Not from a fire. The hearth hasn't been lit since the first frost passed, but from the closeness of the air, trapped all day behind shuttered windows. You cross to them now, lifting the latch. Cool night air slips in, carrying the faint scent of damp stone and wood smoke from the nearby chimney stacks. Down in the street, the lamplighter moves from post to post, his pole glinting in the yellow glow. As he coaxes each flame awake, on the table sits your coin purse. You untie it, pouring the contents into your palm. The brass ring is there, cold and heavy for its size. The seal on its face catches the lamplight, a raised emblem of a merchant's scale, balanced perfectly. You turn it over, searching for some sign of its owner. There's nothing, just the worn smoothness of gold beneath the brass surface, where a thumb might rest. From the hall, the sound of quiet steps. Not the hurried tread of a serving girl, or the uneven gait of a drunk client. This is slow, measured. The footsteps pause outside your door. You slip the ring into the small hollow between the wallboards, a gap you've used before when you needed something hidden, but close enough to reach quickly. A knock, not sharp, just enough to say, I know you're here. You open it a hand's width. It's Elise. Her hair is slightly undone, a few pins clinging stubbornly in place. She glances behind her before speaking. They're looking for you, she says. Not the nephew, not the bailiff, someone else. Her eyes flick to the wall by your bed, as if she somehow knows where the ring is hidden. You let her in, closing the door softly. The sounds from downstairs swell again. A burst of laughter, followed by the thump of boots against wood. Elise sits at the edge of the bed, her voice low. There's a man outside. Doesn't come in, doesn't move along. Just waits. Tall, dark coat, keeps his hand on the hilt of his dagger. Outside, the street performer's voice drifts up faintly, still singing the same slow, mournful tune. The notes settle in your bones, as if they've been meant for you all along. The night has thickened. From the window, the street seems narrower now, its shadows pressed in close by the flicker of lamplight. The lamplighter is gone. The air feels heavier without his quiet, familiar presence. You stand just behind the shutters, careful not to let the sliver of light touch your face. He's there, exactly where Elise said. Tall, broad-shouldered. His coat falls to his knees, the fabric heavy enough to ripple only when the wind changes. One hand rests on the hilt of a dagger. Not in threat, just habit. A man used to carrying it, and perhaps using it. He doesn't look at the windows, doesn't pace. He simply stands, as though his purpose is patient by nature. A horse passes by, its hooves striking wet stone. The man doesn't turn his head. He waits. Elise leans over your shoulder, her breath warm on your ear. If you're going to speak to him, do it before the watch makes their round. They'll ask questions we don't want to answer. You glance at the wallboards, where the ring lies hidden, and think of the note wrapped around the coin earlier. If you keep it, you keep their eyes on you. Down below, the front door creaks open. Someone leaves, their boots tapping briskly toward the quarter gate. The sound is swallowed quickly by the damp air. The street performer's song is still there, threading through the night. But now the words seem sharper, each rhyme tugging at the edge of your understanding. You realize the melody has shifted slightly, no longer mournful. It feels like it's counting time. Elise straightens. Well, she says quietly, do we go down, or do we let him stand there until the sun comes? The choice hangs between you. Stay here, in the warmth and noise of the brothel, pretending the man below is nothing but a shadow, or step outside, into the cold and the quiet, to hear what he's come to say. The decision does not come quickly. It sits in your mind the way cold water sits in a bucket. Still, heavy, waiting for the surface to be broken. Elise doesn't rush you. She leans her hip against the table, arms crossed, watching the window. The man outside has not moved. It's been minutes, or perhaps an hour. The brothel's upstairs rooms bend time like that. You glance toward the wallboards again. The ring is hidden there, but you can almost feel its shape pressing against the air, as if its presence is known beyond these walls. When you first took it, no, when it was given to you, you thought little of it, a trinket, a payment sweetened by the carelessness of the giver. But now, with the nephew's warning still in your ears, it feels less like payment, and more like a debt you never agreed to. Downstairs, the noise swells. Someone shouts at the dice table. The lute player shifts into a brighter tune to mask the argument. It's a familiar rhythm, the room filling with sound to cover cracks in the peace. Elise pushes herself away from the table. Standing still won't change anything, she murmurs. Her eyes are steady on yours. You either speak to him, or you let him know you're not worth waiting for. You tie your shawl over your shoulders. The wool is thin, worn smooth at the edges. It will do nothing for the chill, but it will give you something to hold. Before you leave the room, you slip the ring from its hiding place, wrapping it in the same piece of paper that carried the earlier warning. It feels better in your hand than left behind. The hallway is dim. Oil lamps burn low in their niches, casting soft circles of gold against the plaster. Your steps are slow, not from hesitation, but to avoid the complaint of the loose boards you've learned over the years. At the landing, the air changes, warmer, fuller. The heat from the downstairs crowd rises here, mixed with the smells of roasted meat, sweetened wine, and the faint mineral tang of wet stone carried in from the street. When you reach the bottom of the stairs, Isabella is at the bar, pouring ale for a sailor with salt still crusting his boots. She catches your eye. Out, she asks, as if the word alone carries all the risk it needs. You nod once. She doesn't press. She only slides a glance toward the door, and tilts her chin ever so slightly, a quiet blessing in her own way. The front door is heavier than you remember. The wood swells in damp weather, and tonight it clings to the frame, as though it knows you shouldn't go. When it opens, the cold is immediate, sharp enough to bite at your knuckles where they grip the shawl. The street is quieter now. The lamps burn steady, their flames bending just slightly in the wind. Water glistens in the seams of the cobblestones, catching the light in thin silver lines. And there he is, closer than before, only a few paces from the door, though you never heard him move. Up close, the man's coat is darker still, not black, but a deep brown that swallows most of the lamplight. The leather at his cuffs is cracked, worn soft from use. His face is hard to read, not unkind, but built of sharp lines and stillness. The kind of stillness that suggests careful thought before every word. "You've been hard to find," he says. His voice is low, pitched to carry only as far as you stand. You keep your hands hidden in the folds of your shawl, fingers brushing the folded paper around the ring. "That depends," you say, "on who's been looking." His eyes narrow slightly, not in anger, but in measure, the way a man might narrow his gaze at a scale, to be sure the weight is honest. "I'm told you have something that belongs to a guild master," he says. "A seal ring, carried by men who speak for the merchants in council." You say nothing. The wind shifts, carrying the smell of roasted chestnuts from the vendor's stall near the quarter gate. It mixes with the faint salt of the sea from the harbor beyond. The man does not fill the silence. He waits, as though he's sure you will eventually answer. When you don't, he takes a small step forward. "Keeping it will make you a name," he says. "Not the kind you can spend, the kind that costs you." You glance toward the street performer at the far end of the lane. He's still there, his voice carrying the same steady rhythm. But the words now are about a thief, who mistook a token for a treasure, and paid for it in ways he couldn't count. The man notices your glance, but doesn't turn to look. Instead, he reaches into his coat and draws out a small leather pouch. "If you give me the ring," he says, "you take this, and you're forgotten. No one knocks at your door. No one watches the street for you." The pouch sags slightly in his hand. Coins, by the sound of it, enough to be worth weeks of comfort. Maybe more. You think of the nephew's words earlier, of the note, of the weight of the ring when you first closed your fingers around it. Something in you wants to hand it over now, to end the game before it grows teeth. But another part wonders what could be worth. Watchers in the street, whispers from the bailiff's nephew, and songs in the dark. The man's gaze does not waver. "You don't have long," he says. "Not from me. From them. You could ask who they are. But in this city, the answer is always bigger than the question." You loosen the shawl at your neck, just enough to free your right hand. The folded paper is warm from your palm. You feel the shape of the ring through it, smooth, cold, unyielding. The offer sits between you. Coin for silence, or silence for nothing. Somewhere behind you, a door closes. Laughter spills into the street for a moment, then fades. You take one step closer to the man. The lamplight catches the edge of his jaw. He doesn't move to meet you, but his grip on the pouch tightens slightly. And here, you realize, is the choice. You could give him the ring now, take the coin, and let the matter die quietly, your name slipping into the cracks of the city like so many others. Or you could keep it, knowing it will follow you, perhaps long enough for you to learn why it was worth so much trouble. The street seems to hold its breath. Even the performer's song has stilled. Your fingers close over the paper-wrapped ring. The man's offer hangs between you, still as frost on a window pane. You don't speak. You don't hand him the ring. Instead, you lift your gaze to meet his, just long enough to make the refusal clear. And then you step back. The lamplight shifts with your movement, casting his shadow against the wet cobbles. It's long now, drawn thin by the angle of the flame. His jaw tightens, only slightly, and he slides the pouch of coins back into his coat. "No one will make the offer twice," he says. The words aren't threat. Not exactly, but they feel like a latch clicking into place. A horse passes at the far end of the street, its hooves striking in slow, steady rhythm. By the time you glance back, the man is gone. No footstep, no fading silhouette, only the memory of his shape in the lamplight. The cold seems sharper now. You wrap the shawl tighter around your shoulders and step back into the brothel. The door's weight leans against you as it shuts, as if the street itself is reluctant to let you go. Inside, the air is thick with heat and laughter. It wraps around you, but doesn't quite reach the place in your chest where the man's absence now sits. Isabella looks up from the bar. Her eyes flick over your face, and she doesn't ask what happened. Instead, she slides a cup of watered wine toward you, her way of saying, "You're still here." For now. You retreat to the corner table upstairs, the one where the noise below turns to a soft hum. From here, you can see the wall where the ring was hidden before. It's in your pocket now, heavier than it has any right to be. The paper crinkles as you unfold it. You expect only the earlier warning, but there's something else. Ink fresh enough that it hasn't faded. It's the same handwriting, same careful loops. You've chosen the slower path. They will take their time with you. A sound rises from the street below. Not the lute this time, not the dice players. The street performer's voice has returned, but he isn't singing. It's a low, rhythmic chant, each word spaced like a measured step. You can't make out all the lines, but one phrase repeats often enough to carry through the shutters. The one who holds the seal, holds the door. Elise finds you at the table. Her eyes search yours briefly, then drop to the paper in your hand. She doesn't reach for it. Instead, she sits across from you, her movements unhurried. "You're in it now," she says quietly. No taking your name back out of their mouths. Somewhere outside, a bell tolls the hour. 3 short notes, then silence. The night is deepened, but the feeling that you are being watched has only sharpened. You slip the paper and the ring back into your pocket. They feel like one object now, bound together by something neither coin nor comfort could break. In the street, the chanting stops. Only the wind remains. It begins almost invisibly, not with a knock, not with a shadow in the doorway, but with the way people's eyes slide past you in the market. They don't avoid you exactly. They just don't let their gaze rest on you for long. On the first morning, you pass the bread seller at the corner of Mill Street. He is shaping loaves in the steam from his oven. The smell is warm, and the crusts are still pale from the heat. When you greet him, he nods, but doesn't meet your eyes. It's nothing, probably nothing. But later that same day, you stop by the tailor for a small repair. She works her needle with quick, practiced flicks, thread catching the light each time it loops. When you thank her, she offers only a thin smile. It feels like politeness without warmth. The change is slow enough that you almost convince yourself it's your imagination. Almost. By the third day, you notice that the city watch pauses when you pass. Not openly, no hand on the hilt, no questions asked. Just a slight shift in their stance, as though ready to move if you do. At the brothel, life carries on. Laughter in the main room, lute strings in the evening, the sweet sour tang of cheap wine spilled into the floorboards. But even here, small things are different. When you come down the stairs, Isabella lowers her voice before you reach the bar. The dice players stop their game when you pass. Elise notices. Of course she notices. She says nothing, but her gaze follows you longer than before. On the 5th day, a token appears at your door. It is small, a carved piece of bone, shaped into a key. The ridges are too shallow to open anything real. On one side, a mark has been burned into the surface, a circle with 3 short lines cutting through it, like the spokes of a wheel. You've never seen it before, or perhaps you've simply never noticed it. You turn it over in your palm. The bone is warm from the sun, but there's something about it that feels used, as though it has passed through many hands before yours. You slip it into the same pocket as the ring. The weight there is changing, not heavier, just denser. The next morning, you wake to find the shutters slightly open. They were closed the night before. You are sure of it. The street outside is quiet, A cart clatters far off, its wheels striking the same hollow rhythm over the cobbles. On the windowsill, balanced so neatly it cannot have fallen by accident, is a sprig of rosemary. Fresh, still fragrant. The scent follows you through the day, even after you leave it behind. At the market, the fishmonger asks no questions, but wraps your purchase in thicker paper than usual. When you unfold it at home, there is another mark drawn in charcoal on the inside. The same circle with 3 lines. It's not a message. Not yet. It's a reminder. That's what taking their time means, you realize. Not chasing you down the alley. Not dragging you into a back room. No, they are letting the city speak for them. Every look, every mark, every small thing left where you will find it. A slow tightening of the cord. One evening, you sit in the upstairs room with Elise. The light is soft, smeared gold by the oil lamp. Her needle moves in slow arcs over the hem of a dress. You've started looking over your shoulder, she says quietly. It's not a question. They're not rushing, you answer. They don't need to. Elise doesn't smile. She sets the needle down and folds the cloth. They won't stop until the ring leaves your hand, she says. And even then, they might not stop. It's not just the thing you have. It's the choice you made when they offered you the way out. The wind outside shifts, blowing in from the harbor. You hear the faint creak of a mast in the distance, the call of a gull carried far inland. You think of the man in the dark coat, of his offer, of the pouch of coins you didn't take. The next day, you find another token. This one is not carved bone, but a small scrap of fabric, dark red, frayed at the edges. When you touch it, your fingers come away with the faint smell of smoke. It lies on your pillow, as though it has been waiting for you to wake. Downstairs, Isabetta stops you before you leave. Her hand is light on your arm, but her voice is firm. You should talk to someone, she says. Not me, not Elise. Someone who can stand between you and them. You don't ask who she means by them. The word feels too large to fit in your mouth. That evening, you pass the corner where the street performer once sang. The performer is gone, but someone else stands there. A child, barefoot despite the chill. In her hand, she holds another sprig of rosemary. She doesn't speak. She just extends it toward you, waiting until you take it before turning away. By the time you return to the brothel, the weight in your pocket feels heavier still. The ring, the bone key, the scraps of fabric and herbs, not much on their own, but together, a collection of reminders that you have been marked. You don't seek them out, not exactly, but your steps take you toward the old quarter, where the streets knot themselves tighter, and the signs swing in the wind like loose teeth. The stones here are darker, worn smooth by more than feet. Water seeps between them even in dry weather. The air smells of tallow and river silt. You've heard the name before, passed from mouth to mouth in the quiet way. People speak of things they aren't meant to name. The reader of marks. Some call her a fortune teller, some a fraud. Others insist she's older than the walls themselves. You find her in a narrow shop, wedged between a candlemaker's stall and a boarded-up wine house. The door is crooked. The sign above it is nothing but a painted circle, 3 short lines cutting through it, the same mark that has been following you for days. Inside, it is warmer than it should be. The air is heavy with herbs you can't name, and a low hum seems to live in the walls. She sits behind a table, her hair the gray of wet stone, her eyes fixed on the doorway before you even cross it. You've brought them with you, she says. Not a greeting, not even surprise. You sit. The chair creaks beneath you. The ring, the bone key, the rosemary. You place them on the table. She doesn't touch them. She only looks, her gaze moving as though she is tracing a pattern you can't see. The circle is older than the city, she says. It marks a debt that isn't counted in coin. You wait for her to go on. The hum in the walls seems to grow louder. They will not kill you quickly. That is not their way. They will strip away your voice, your friends, your name, until there is nothing left of you to hold the ring. Her eyes lift to yours. and then they will take it from your hand without force, because by then you will give it to them. The words sink into the air between you, too heavy to move. What is the debt? You ask at last. She leans back, her chair whispering against the floor. Not yours, she says. You're only the one holding it now. From a drawer, she takes a length of black thread. She winds it 3 times around the bone key, then ties it tight. This will slow them, she says. It will not stop them. If you want to end it, you must leave the city. And even then, she lets the thought trail off like smoke. Outside, the sky has thickened to a dull gray. The wind pushes against your coat, but the warmth from her shop clings to you in a way that isn't entirely comforting. You pass the boarded wine house. Somewhere behind it, a bell rings 3 times. Back at the brothel, Elise meets you on the stairs. Her eyes drop to your pocket. You went to her, she says. There's no question in it. She says it isn't my debt, you answer. Elise nods slowly. Debts have a way of finding whoever's close enough to touch. That night, you lie awake. The black thread scratches faintly against the cloth of your pocket. From the street below, you hear the slow tread of boots. Not hurried, not searching, just moving at the pace of someone who knows where every road leads. You don't tell Elise. You don't tell Isabella. You don't even tell yourself at first. But the thought takes shape anyway. If they are watching so closely, what happens when you step just far enough out of place? To see them blink? It begins with the market, not the usual stalls along Mill Street, but the small, crooked lane that runs behind the tanneries. The air there is thick with the smell of leather and lime. Few people linger. Too damp, too narrow, too easy to vanish into. You stop at a stall selling brass trinkets, keys with no locks, coins with no faces, small bells that chime in uneven tones. The merchant is old, his beard the same red-brown as the rust on his table. When you pick up a coin, you feel the weight of someone watching. Not him. From farther off, you glance up, catch the shape of a man leaning against a doorway across the lane. Dark coat, face half-turned. When you look directly at him, he doesn't move, but his head tilts, just slightly, as if to say, go on. See what happens. You buy the coin. It is heavier than it should be, its edges worn smooth from years of passing through too many hands. You slip it into your pocket with the others. The ring, the bone key, the rosemary now dried to brittle sprigs. The coin feels different. Not a warning, a question. That night, you go farther, not into the city's heart, but outward, toward the Old Watch Road that curves along the inner wall. Few people walk there after sunset. It is a place for the city guard, for smugglers, for those who wish to be neither seen nor found. Your boots scrape the stones in a steady rhythm. Behind you, there is another set of steps. Not hurried, not hiding, just there. You stop. The steps stop. You take 3 more paces. The sound follows, always just far enough behind to make turning around feel like surrender. At the old post gate, you turn suddenly. The road is empty, only the faint smell of rosemary in the wind. Back at the brothel, Elise is waiting at the top of the stairs. She says nothing, but her eyes rest on you long enough to make the air between you heavy. On your bed, someone has left another token. Not bone, not cloth, not herb. A single black feather, its shaft split down the middle. You place it with the others. The collection grows, but the meaning only thickens like unbroken fog. Still, when you close your eyes that night, you can't help thinking, for the first time, you made them follow you, instead of the other way around. Morning comes pale and damp. The fog sits low over the rooftops, blurring the chimneys into gray smudges. The streets are quieter than they should be. Even the hawkers call in muted voices, as though the air itself might be listening. Isabella calls you downstairs before you've had your tea. Her voice is flat, and when you reach the bar, you see why. A man is waiting there. Not the one from the lamplit street, not the watcher from the market. This one is dressed in the city guard's green and black. His boots are clean, too clean for a morning like this. He turns when you enter, measuring you in a glance. Name, he asks. Not your name. The one you used to give. Before the brothel. Before the ring. When you don't answer, he produces a folded scrap of parchment. It is sealed with black wax. Pressed into it is the circle. 3 lines through its heart. No address. No signature. He sets it on the bar, but doesn't slide it toward you. You have to reach for it yourself. The seal breaks easily. Inside is a single line. You took a step. Now take another. Beneath it, drawn in careful ink, is a shape you recognize. The Old Watch Road, marked with a small cross at its northern bend. When you look up, the man is already gone. Isabella doesn't ask. She only pours tea into your cup and sets it in front of you. Her hand lingers on the handle for a moment, as if weighing whether to speak. Then she says, "Whatever it is, you'd better finish it before it finishes you." By afternoon, the fog has burned away, but the air feels heavier. Each street seems narrower than you remember. The mark on the map pulls at you, not with urgency, with inevitability. You take the long way to the Old Watch Road. Every corner feels like it might hold a face you've seen before. At the bend, you find no one, only a small wooden box, resting in the shadow of the wall. The lid opens with a sigh. Inside, a length of black cloth, and the brass coin you bought in the market, now stamped with the circle. You turn it over in your palm. The metal is warm, not from the sun, from being held, recently, by someone else. You look up at the wall. For a moment, you think you see a figure walking along the top, but the wind shifts, and it is gone. Only the sound of boots remains, fading into the stones. That night, you keep the box beside your bed. The black cloth smells faintly of rosemary. You sleep, but the dreams are different, full of roads that lead only to circles, and doors that open to nothing but more doors. The map lies on your table all morning. You don't touch it, but every time you pass, your eyes find the small black cross at the road's northern bend. It isn't far, but distance isn't the measure here. The box from the wall sits beside it, the black cloth folded neatly, the brass coin still warm when you pick it up, as though it refuses to cool. You wonder how long they waited after placing it, how close they stood to watch you lift the lid. Elise comes in without knocking. She looks at the table, then at you. "They don't give everyone maps," she says. Her tone isn't warning. It's resignation. When you don't answer, she adds, "If you go, you'll owe them more than you already do." That thought follows you into the afternoon. The city hums in its usual way. Carts groaning under grain sacks. Traders calling over one another. The slow toll of the water clock. But under it all, you can hear something else. Not sound exactly. A pull. By the time the light begins to fade, you've made your choice. If you don't go, you stay within the brothel's walls, telling yourself you've avoided their trap. But every sound in the stairwell, every knock at the door, makes you think you hear the tread of clean boots on stone. The map burns in your mind more than the candle beside it. If you do go, you leave just before dusk. The streets empty slowly, shadows stretching like fingers across the cobbles. When you reach the bend in the Old Watch Road, there is no box this time, only a length of black cloth nailed to the wall, the coin tied to its end. Either way, you understand something you hadn't before. The choice was never between safety and danger. It was only between moving in their direction or waiting for them to come closer. That night, sleep doesn't come. When it finally does, you dream of standing at the city gates, coin in one hand, black cloth in the other, and the gates swinging open not to let you leave, but to let them in. You leave before dawn, not because you think it's safer, but because the city is different then. The streets are empty, the air damp and pale, and the only eyes on you are the ones that have chosen to be there. The map in your pocket feels heavier with every turn you take. You know the way without looking now. The bends in the Watch Road, the cracked stones where weeds push through. At the northern mark, you find a gap in the wall you hadn't noticed before. It isn't a door, just 2 stones set far enough apart that a person could slip through sideways. Beyond it, the air changes, cooler, still. The light feels wrong, as if the sun doesn't quite reach here. The path curves inward, lined with buildings that lean toward each other, their upper floors almost touching overhead. You hear the sound of water, slow and steady, but can't see its source. Somewhere ahead, a bell chimes, not the deep tone of the city clock, but a smaller, sharper sound. Once, twice, 3 times. You pass a doorway draped in black cloth. It stirs slightly, though there is no wind. A figure stands in the shadows beyond. They do not step forward. They only watch you pass, their face hidden, their hands folded. The path ends in a small square, paved with uneven stones slick from the damp. In its center sits a well. Around the well, 3 people stand at equal distances, silent. One of them raises a hand. You see the brass coin glint in their palm. They don't speak. They only tilt their head toward the well. You take a step closer. The air here smells faintly of rosemary. And something else. Older. Metallic. Like rainwater left too long in a bucket. When you reach the well, you look down. There is no water. Only darkness. Not the kind your eyes adjust to. The kind that swallows light whole. A whisper comes, not from the figures, but from the well itself. A voice you almost recognize. Once in, you don't come out the same. Behind you, the figures are still. The coin in the leader's hand catches the dim light again. And for a moment, you think you see the circle mark in its reflection. You understand. Whatever happens next, you've crossed the line they wanted you to cross. The well's edge is cold beneath your hands. Not stone cold. Colder, like it's been holding the night inside it for years. The 3 figures wait without moving. Their patience is heavy enough to feel in your bones. If you look in, you lean forward, letting the dim light slide over your shoulder and spill down. There's no bottom, not even the shape of one. Only that blackness, thick and unbroken. And then, a flicker, not a reflection, a movement, something shifting just beyond the edge of sight. It doesn't feel like it's coming toward you. It feels like it's turning away, as though it already knows you. The darkness holds your gaze longer than you mean to let it. When you pull back, the cold clings to your fingers. If you turn away, you step back from the well, letting the figures see your refusal. They don't speak, but you notice one of them, the tallest, turn their head slightly, as though listening to something behind you. You glance over your shoulder. For an instant, you see the same darkness hanging in the air a few steps away, shaped like an open doorway, gone before you can focus on it. The leader steps forward at last, placing the brass coin into your palm. It is colder than it should be. They close your fingers around it, and leave their hand over yours just long enough to make it clear. This isn't a gift. It's an anchor. Without another word, the 3 turn and leave by different paths, vanishing into the narrow streets beyond. You're left standing by the well, coin in hand, the air still heavy with rosemary and rain metal. Somewhere in the distance, a bell chimes again, once, twice, 3 times, and the sound feels less like a signal, and more like a reminder. You've been marked now. The path back should be simple. 2 turns, a squeeze through the gap in the wall, and the old watch road leading home. But the streets feel different now. It's still morning, yet the light seems flatter, as if the sun's been filtered through gray cloth. Windows that were shuttered before are open now, though no faces appear. A pale curtain stirs in one, the motion too slow, too steady, to be the wind. You pass a fountain you've never seen before, a simple stone basin, water running clear over its lip. The air around it smells of rosemary. No one else notices it. A cart rumbles by. A boy runs past, and neither glances at the fountain at all. When you look back, it's gone. At the corner of Ferris Street, you find the cobbles darker than the rest, as though something wet has seeped between them. When you step over, your boot's sole chills instantly, like you've walked across a patch of ice. The feeling doesn't fade for several steps. The city seems to watch you now, not with the eyes of strangers, but with its own quiet attention. A drainpipe drips where no rain has fallen. A cat follows you for half a block, then stops dead, ears twitching toward something behind you. You don't turn around. By the time you reach Isabetta's door, your hand is clenched around the brass coin so tightly. Its edge has pressed a shallow line into your palm. You set it on the table beside the map. It rolls once, then stops with the circle mark facing up. Isabetta looks at it, then at you. She says nothing, but later that night, you hear her bolt the front door twice instead of once. You go to bed early, telling yourself you'll sleep through whatever follows. The coin is still on the table. You've turned it face down, but you can feel it there in the dark, as if it remembers you. The city is quieter than usual tonight. No late carts, no shouts from the watch, no drunken songs drifting up from the taverns. Only the soft tick of the wall clock and your own breathing. You're almost asleep when you hear it. A faint, rhythmic sound, like something dripping far away. It isn't coming from the roof. It isn't rain. It's closer, somewhere inside the building. You get up, bare feet against the cool floor, and follow the sound down the hall. It stops when you reach the stairwell. You wait, breathing as quietly as you can. Then you hear it again, but now it's not a drip. It's the soft tap of metal against stone, slow and steady, like a coin spinning and falling over and over. When you glance toward the bottom of the stairs, you see nothing, but the air is heavy with that rosemary scent again, sharp enough to make your eyes sting. You take a step down. The smell fades instantly. The sound stops. Back in your room, you find the coin on the table exactly as you left it. Only now, there's a damp ring around it, as if it's been resting in water. You don't touch it. Sleep comes eventually, but it's thin, fragile. You dream of the well. But this time, it isn't in their square. It's in the center of your room, and you're standing at its edge, coin in hand, while something below waits without moving. You wake before dawn, and for a long moment, you expect to see the well beside your bed. Instead, there's only the table. The light in your room feels thin, as if the day hasn't made up its mind about arriving. You search first without thinking, checking the table, the floor, under the bed. The coin is gone. You don't tell Isabetta. There's no point. She already moves as though she's noticed. The way she keeps the shutters closed all morning, the way her eyes pause on you before looking past. When you ask about errands, she shakes her head. It's not the day for being seen, she says. You leave anyway. The streets seem narrower today, though you can't tell if it's the buildings leaning closer, or your mind pressing inward. Shops you've passed 100 times have their signs taken down, their doors chained from the inside. The city's air tastes faintly of rosemary again, but now it's threaded with the scent of hot iron. At the corner of Crow Lane, you stop. There, on the edge of the gutter, is the coin, face up, the circle mark gleaming faintly, as if it's been polished. You kneel, but the moment your fingers are an inch from it, someone's shadow falls across the street. A man you don't know stands on the far side, leaning against the wall. His clothes are plain, his face unreadable. He doesn't move toward you, but his eyes are fixed on the coin. You pick it up anyway. It's warm this time, too warm, as though it's been held in someone's palm for hours. When you look back across the street, the man is gone. You slip the coin into your pocket. It feels heavier there than it should. The rosemary scent fades, but the warmth stays. You realize, without knowing why, that this was their way of making sure you didn't walk away. You don't mean to follow it. You only mean to walk. But your steps fall into a rhythm that matches the faint weight of the coin in your pocket. A pull, like a heartbeat you can't hear but somehow feel. The city opens differently today. Alleys you thought ended in brick now carry on into narrow turns. Doorways you've passed 100 times are boarded, as if they've been abandoned for years. Every few blocks, you hear that same faint tap of metal on stone, too far away to place, but never far enough to fade. You turn onto a lane you've never seen. The cobbles are smooth, polished like river stones. The buildings lean over it, tiled roofs almost touching, casting the street in a permanent dusk. There are no signs, no shop fronts, just doors, all painted the same dull black, all without handles. At the far end of the lane, a single archway stands. It isn't wide enough for a cart, and it isn't tall enough for a horseman. It feels built for someone on foot, someone who knows they belong there. You step closer, and the scent of rosemary rises sharply, as if you've walked into a cloud of it. The coin in your pocket grows hotter. When you reach the archway, you realize the street beyond isn't part of the city you know. The stones are darker, the air cooler. Somewhere in the distance, you hear the sound of running water, but it's slower, thicker, as though the river itself has been made to hesitate. You stand there, coin in hand, looking into a place that should not exist, and you understand now. This is where they live, not in the houses and taverns you've seen, but in the folds of the city itself, in streets that weren't there yesterday, and might not be there tomorrow. You step through. The sound of the city behind you drops away instantly, like a door has closed, though you didn't hear one shut. Ahead, the new street curves out of sight. The air smells of rosemary, wet stone, and something faintly metallic. The coin cools in your palm. The first thing you notice is the quiet, not the kind you get in the early morning market, before the fishmongers arrive, but the kind that feels deliberate, held, as if someone has gathered up every sound and put it away in a locked box. The buildings here are narrow and tall, built from dark brick with thin mortar lines, their upper windows shuttered from the inside. No smoke rises from chimneys. No laundry hangs from the lines. Still, there are signs of life. A cup left on a stoop, its rim stained red from wine. A door slightly ajar, with the faintest glow of a candle far inside. A scarf, its fringe trailing down a drain. Your boots make almost no noise on the stones. The air is cooler here, and though the rosemary scent lingers, there's something new beneath it, a faint trace of oil, like the smell from a freshly sharpened blade. You pass a window at head height. It's covered by thin cloth, but behind it, a shadow moves slowly. You stop. The shadow stops. When you take a step forward, the shadow takes one back and vanishes into darkness. Further in, you reach a small square. At its center stands a low, circular platform, its stone darkened by moisture. No water runs here, yet the surface glistens. Set into the middle is a round iron disc, marked with the same circle you've seen on the coin. The moment you draw closer, the coin in your pocket tilts forward, as though trying to leap toward it. The warmth returns. You crouch, placing the coin flat against the iron. The instant it touches, you feel a deep vibration in your hands. Not sound, but a pulse, like the heartbeat of the square itself.